Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is the place where we don't just swim in the ocean of information.
We bring up the treasure chest.
We bring up the treasure chest.
Yeah.
And if you're getting ready for, a crucial presentation, starting a big research paper, or even just trying to satisfy that deep curiosity, the foundation is everything.
It really is. The quality of your sources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we're focusing on today, the foundation itself.
And it's so important. We always say here that the material you bring to the table, that determines the absolute strength of your argument. It's like the concrete and steel beneath your intellectual skyscraper.
I like that.
But here's the real challenge. A research paper only becomes truly powerful when it's built on strong, vetted academic sources. And yet that foundational step, just finding them, that's where most people stumble.
And it's such a frustrating failure, isn't it? You have this great idea, a really compelling research question, and then suddenly you're just drowning in digital noise. You find yourself choosing sources that are, unreliable, or maybe they're wildly outdated, or they're just too simple for the kind of depth you need.
And the worst part is the time. The sheer amount of time you waste just scrolling and hoping with no real strategy.
Information overload is just a symptom, right?
It is. The root causes are poor tooling and, a lack of strategy. People spend hours scrolling through general search results, and they come away just feeling exhausted. They mistake volume for substance.
So our mission today is to solve that.
Exactly. We're giving you the blueprint, the tools you need to bypass all that noise and find the credible, relevant sources that will immediately elevate any argument you're trying to make.
Okay, let's unpack this with a perfect example of what goes wrong, because I think this story is pretty universal. Let's talk about Rami.
Okay.
Rami's a university student. He's tackling a paper on a really relevant topic, the effect of sleep on academic performance.
A fantastic topic. Timely, personal, grounded in real science.
So, Rami does what most of us do. He opens up his favorite search engine, Google, and he just starts searching. He types in things like sleep study grades or how sleep affects memory.
And what does he find?
Opinions, lots of opinions.
Yeah.
Forums where people are just discussing exam stress. He finds blog posts from life coaches offering, vague tips, short little articles that define REM sleep but have no real data.
He's hitting the consumer web. That's the problem. The search engine is optimized to give him results that its algorithm thinks will lead to clicks or purchases.
Or ads for sleep apps.
Exactly. It's not optimized for methodology or for statistical analysis. It's built for volume and immediacy.
And so after almost 2 hours of this, 2 hours of frustrating searching, Rami is still stuck. He hasn't found a single primary study, nothing with methodology, control groups, any real scientific analysis.
He's ready to give up.
He is. He's ready to just simplify his paper to the point where it's boring, all because he can't find that bedrock evidence.
Yeah.
So the problem, it's absolutely not the topic. The problem is the tools he's using. He's fishing in the wrong pond with the wrong net.
And that takes us immediately to the crucial distinction we need to make, the philosophical and practical shift in where research truly begins.
Okay, let's dive into that shift, because Rami's 2 hours of frustration bring us right to the very first rule of effective research, the one that changes everything.
The foundational rule is simple, but it's so often ignored. Standard general search engines are not where academic research begins.
Not the starting point.
Not the starting point. I mean, we have to acknowledge a general search engine is a miraculous tool for everyday questions. Checking restaurant hours, finding a quick date in history.
What's the capital of France?
Perfect for that. Instant correct answer. But it's fundamentally inadequate for research that requires depth, validation, and academic methodology.
Right, because if you ask it, what are the latest neurocognitive findings on how REM sleep impacts memory consolidation, you're going to get.
You'll get a consumer-focused summary, maybe a 2-sentence clip from Wikipedia, and 20 sponsored posts for brain-boosting supplements.
The signal-to-noise ratio is just terrible.
It is. So we need to transition from that consumer web to what we call the research web. And that means focusing on 3 essential types of sources, the non-negotiables.
Okay, let's call them the 3 pillars of academic information. What's pillar number 1?
Pillar number 1, books. Specifically, scholarly texts, monographs, and comprehensive edited volumes.
Books feel so foundational. Why start there?
Because they're absolutely essential for building that deep background knowledge. While an article gives you a narrow new focus, A book provides the history, the context, the whole theoretical framework.
So it's the big picture.
It's the entire intellectual landscape. An article is a single experiment. A scholarly book explains why that experiment even mattered.
That distinction is key. The macro context versus the micro findings. Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's imagine you're researching second language acquisition. Maybe you're looking at the best way to teach grammar to adult immigrants.
Okay.
You can't just jump straight into some peer-reviewed study about, I don't know, a single mnemonic device. You need the context first.
To read the history.
You need a century's worth of context. You'd look for scholarly books on the history of language acquisition theory or comprehensive texts covering different teaching methods. These foundational texts give you the frameworks that when you read that narrow, cutting-edge study later, you understand the decades of research it's building on.
Without the book, the article feels like it's in a vacuum.
Exactly. An isolated experiment.
Okay, so books provide that bedrock, that historical context. But what provides the newest, validated, cutting-edge findings? The evidence that lets us make a specific, modern claim.
That is pillar number 2. And this is the undisputed heart of all academic research, peer-reviewed journal articles.
This is the big one.
If you take away only one thing today, it should be the primacy of the peer-reviewed journal article.
Okay, let's unpack this, because peer-reviewed is the definition of quality control, but I don't think many people truly grasp the grueling process involved.
It is grueling.
What does it actually entail? Why is it the gold standard?
The peer review process is a quality control mechanism that is pretty much unique to academic publishing. It's designed to filter out junk science, faulty methodology, unsupported claims.
So how does it work?
When a researcher finishes a study and writes an article, they submit it to a journal. Before that article is ever even considered for publication, it's sent out, usually anonymously, to other recognized experts or peers in that exact niche field.
So if I wrote a piece on, say, the effect of minimum wage laws on hiring patterns, it would be reviewed by other labor economists.
Absolutely, 3 or 4 of them. And these peers, they scrutinize everything. They're looking for flaws in your methodology. Did you use the right sample size?
Right.
Was your control group appropriate?
They're picking it apart.
They're scrutinizing the data analysis, the statistical methods, the conclusions you draw. They look for gaps, biases, logical leaps. It is not an easy process. High-impact journals can have rejection rates upwards of 80, even 90%.
That's an incredible failure rate.
Which means only the most rigorous, battle-tested research actually makes it through. The article is rarely accepted outright. It's almost always sent back for revisions, sometimes multiple times.
So it can take a long time.
Oh, 6 months to a year, easily. But this rigorous multi-stage validation is exactly why these sources are so valuable. It's where new, trusted knowledge is officially introduced into the global academic community.
Okay, that makes sense. So we have foundational history from books and validated cutting-edge findings from journals. What about that third pillar, the broad contextual reports?
Pillar number 3 involves academic reports and specialized publications from reputable organizations.
What do you mean by that?
These are materials published by research institutions, major governmental bodies, nonpartisan think tanks, or international bodies like the OECD or the World Health Organization.
So they're not publishing single experiments.
Right. They're summarizing vast studies, compiling massive data sets, or analyzing broad findings across entire disciplines. They provide that macro-level data, the big trends.
So if I was researching climate change, a report from a major scientific body would give me the global data to frame my more specific journal article.
Precisely. Their credibility is tied to their objectivity, their scale, and the statistical methodologies they use. If you stick to these 3 source types, scholarly books, peer-reviewed articles, and reputable reports, you've already sidestepped 90% of the reliability problems that crippled Rami's initial search.
We've established the 3 types of sources. Now we have to shift our focus to the where. This brings us to locating the treasure, the right tools.
Right.
We know where not to search. So where should we actually start looking for these things?
We have to use search engines that are designed for academic discovery. The first and most accessible starting point, it's simple, it's free, is the academic search engine known as Google Scholar.
Now, I think most people have heard of it, but they often assume it's just standard Google with a slight filter. Why is Scholar a fundamentally superior, different beast?
It operates on an entirely different indexing philosophy. Google Scholar is specifically engineered to crawl and index academic sources. It filters out commercial websites, news blogs, and consumer forums.
So it's only looking in the right places.
Exactly. It focuses its search exclusively on academic publishers, university repositories, professional organizations, journals, and conference proceedings. Because it ignores the consumer web, its results are inherently designed for academic rigor.
This immediately changes Romy's whole experience then. When he searched on standard Google, he got mattress ads.
But when Ramy switches to Google Scholar with the same search terms, he instantly finds research papers that use rigorous scientific methodology. He'll find studies measuring sleep hours against actual GPA or test scores, detailed experiments, statistical analyses.
He goes from opinion to data-driven argument.
Instantly.
Okay, Scholar is fantastic for that initial discovery. But here's where I need to challenge you. If Scholar is simple, free, and so effective, why do we even need the next tier of tools? Isn't that overkill for most people?
That's an excellent point, and it speaks to the economic reality of academic publishing. While Scholar helps you find the source, it gives you the abstract, the author, the title, it often leads to what researchers call the abstract wall.
Oh, the paywall.
The paywall. You find the perfect article, you read the summary, and then the journal website asks you to pay $40, $60, even $80 for the full PDF.
Which is not sustainable.
Not at all. And that's why we need the true power source, university library databases.
The premium tier.
The premium tier. Think of these databases as massive, curated, specialized libraries that universities pay huge subscription fees for. They house the full research articles that are otherwise paywalled.
So this is where you get unlimited access.
This is indispensable if you're serious about research.
Okay, let's get technical here, because naming the tools is important, but knowing what they're for is the real deep dive insight. What are the major players?
You need to know these names because choosing the right one saves so much time. First, you have JSTOR.
The classic.
It is. It's incredible for the humanities, social sciences, history, the arts. Its strength is its archive. It holds older foundational articles that are critical for historical context.
Okay, what else?
Then you have Science Direct. It's sort of the polar opposite. It's owned by Elsevier, and it dominates the STEM fields. Physical sciences, medicine, engineering. It specializes in the latest, highest impact articles.
So one is for history, one is for the latest science.
In a way, yes. Then there's EB-Sohost. This is the massive interdisciplinary workhorse. It compiles articles from thousands of journals across almost every field: business, education, psychology. It's a great starting point for broad topics.
And the last one?
ProQuest. This one is often specialized in unique content, especially dissertations and theses. If you need to see the absolute cutting edge of a single researcher's work, ProQuest is the place.
Understanding those four focuses, humanities, STEM, interdisciplinary, and dissertations, that's a key efficiency hack.
It is, and here is the crucial detail for you, the listener. If you are a university student or even an alumni at some schools, you already have free access to these collections through your library.
You bypass the paywall entirely.
A subscription that's worth thousands of dollars a year. Using it is the difference between a frustrating search and an efficient one.
So we have the tools, we know the source types. Now we move from acquisition to evaluation, and this is where it gets really interesting, because just finding a source, even in a great database, isn't enough.
Not at all. This is the challenge of evaluation. Finding a source is a mechanical task. Evaluating it is a critical thinking exercise.
So what are the essential standards? What's a 5-point checklist we need to run through for every single source we consider?
We use 5 essential criteria. If a source fails any of these, you should probably discard it.
Let's start with the first and maybe most intuitive one, authorship.
Standard 1. The source must be written by a demonstrably qualified expert. This means the author has explicit credentials, experience, specialized knowledge.
You're not just looking for a name.
No, you're looking for an affiliation. Is the author a professor of epidemiology at a respected medical school? Check their biography, their institution, their publication record. Are they an established voice in that conversation?
That immediately gets rid of Ramy's blog posts. But what if a qualified expert publishes somewhere obscure?
That brings us to Standard 2. The source must be published in a reputable journal or by an established academic publisher.
And reputable means?
Established, known for its rigorous peer review, indexed in major databases, and widely respected. You're looking for names like the New England Journal of Medicine or publishers like Oxford University Press. The reputation of the outlet is a guarantee of quality control.
Okay, Standard 3 seems obvious, but I think it gets overlooked a lot. Evidence.
Yes. The claims must be demonstrably supported by empirical data or verifiable citations, non-negotiable. If an article claims something, you must see the evidence. Where is the data? What was the methodology?
And does it have a reference list?
Critically, yes. If a study presents conclusions without showing its work, it's a weak link.
What about objectivity? How do we vet for that?
Standard 4. The source must be objective and impartial. Academic research aims to present findings dispassionately. The authors should acknowledge the limitations of their own study.
So they should avoid charged language.
Exactly. It should be analytical, not prescriptive or moralizing.
And finally, the practical test, standard 5.
Relevance. It must be directly relevant to your specific research question. An excellent article on ancient Greek philosophy is useless if your paper is on supply chain logistics. Time is too precious.
Okay, let's do a quick practice scenario. Our topic is, how does social media affect adolescents' self-esteem? We do a search on Google Scholar. We get a mix of results.
Right. We have to categorize what we keep and what we discard, so what's appropriate? Well, if we find a peer-reviewed journal article by social psychologists who did an empirical study,
Measuring self-esteem levels in teenagers who reduce their Instagram use.
that's a definite keeper. Original research, objective, expert authors.
What else is appropriate?
A book chapter in an edited volume on digital communication ethics written by a recognized media scholar. That gives you excellent theoretical background context.
And a third.
Maybe a recent conference paper that explores a very specific habit, like the immediate impact of filtered images on mood. Conference papers are great for highly recent specialized findings.
Okay, those three give us depth, history, and cutting-edge data. Now, what do we avoid, even if it shows up in our results?
First, avoid anything that relies entirely on personal testimony. This includes that popular YouTube influencer discussing their opinion, even if they mention a study.
Lacks objectivity.
And the goal is engagement, not scientific rigor. Second, and this is a major trap, avoid the short news article or magazine piece that just summarizes a study.
Why is that such a big trap?
Because it's designed for mass consumption. It's brief, it might use sensational language, and it often skips the nuances or cherry picks the most shocking result. It is not the primary source.
And third, avoid anything without references.
Any piece, a blog post, a white paper that makes a bold claim but doesn't trace it back to an empirical study is academically useless. It's just an opinion.
Which brings us to what you call the most important principle for accuracy.
The go to the original rule.
This is fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why can't we just trust a summary in a news article?
Because accuracy degrades with every layer of interpretation. A news outlet might say, Dr. Chen proved social media causes depression, but that summary might be wrong.
How so?
Maybe Dr. Chen's study only found a correlation, not causation. A huge difference. Maybe the study was limited to a very small group. The summary won't tell you that.
So we have to bypass the journalist's interpretation and see the data for ourselves.
Exactly. You need to find the original 2023 study by Dr. Chen. You must see the methodology. You must assess the statistical significance. You have to go to the original source to ensure accuracy and to fully understand the limitations of the evidence you're citing.
This whole process ensures we're working with concrete foundations. Now let's move into advanced search strategy and research efficiency. We've established the what and the where. Now we focus on the how.
Right. How to search smarter, not harder. Efficiency is everything. A huge part of that is using your search terms strategically. If you only use one narrow phrase, you'll miss 80% of the good stuff.
Let's use our example. How does remote work affect mother's work-life balance? If you just search that exact phrase, you might get a few articles.
But you'll miss dozens of equally relevant studies from different fields that use different terminology.
So we need to think laterally. Break the problem down into its components. The type of work, the demographic, and the challenge.
That's the key. So you need a cluster of related keywords. For instance, start by searching something that management science would study. Remote work productivity.
Why that one?
Because studies on productivity track things like hours worked, boundary setting, and performance at home. These challenges inevitably intersect with the challenges parents face.
So you pull in results from business schools.
Exactly. Then you narrow down with the direct term, remote work mothers. That gets you the sociology and family studies research.
But we can't stop there.
No, you need to broaden the concept using more formal language. Work-life balance working parents. This brings in studies on fathers, single parents, the whole household dynamic. It gives you valuable context.
And finally, we have to use modern terms.
Yes, hybrid work family challenges. This captures the newest findings on the challenge of shifting between home and the office, which is highly relevant to childcare.
So by searching those 4 distinct sets of keywords, you get a far richer, more comprehensive range of articles.
It's strategic. You're covering management science, sociology, psychology, and public policy.
Okay, next up, publication dates. You mentioned the 5-7-year rule. Why that specific time frame?
Well, the importance of recency depends entirely on your subject. If you're researching Plato, a classic text from 50 years ago is essential.
But many fields are dynamic.
Extremely. Especially anything involving technology, AI, social media, even public health. The landscape changes fundamentally every few years. Research from 15 years ago can be totally irrelevant.
You can't write a paper on ChatGPT using a 2008 article on dial-up internet.
Precisely. It immediately dates your paper and weakens your claims because your evidence is based on an obsolete reality. So the benchmark is this. Aim for studies published in the last 5 to 7 years for these fast-moving subjects.
And you can use the date filter in the database for that.
You must. It ensures your arguments are founded on the most modern, relevant evidence.
Are there exceptions?
Of course. You might use a 30-year-old article if it introduced the foundational theory you're using. The key is balance. Use modern sources for data and application, but don't ignore foundational sources for theory.
Okay, we've got the tools, the keywords, the date filters. Now let's discuss what I think is the most powerful shortcut for research efficiency. The guaranteed way to find more great sources.
Ah, yes. Leveraging reference lists. Or citation chaining. This is the researcher's map.
Describe the process. I find that one perfect recent article by Dr. Chen. What do I do next?
First, you save that article. Second, you scroll immediately past the conclusion to the reference list at the end. That list is a curated map of 30 to 50 related studies that are automatically high quality and relevant.
Why are they guaranteed to be high quality?
Because of academic succession. The article you found is only credible because its authors successfully cited and built upon the work of other trusted, peer-reviewed experts. Those names on the reference list are the intellectual lineage of your topic.
So instead of going back to the search bar and typing in new keywords,
which risks pulling in less relevant results.
I just grab the best titles from Dr. Chen's reference list and search for those specific titles in my university database.
Precisely. This technique is hyper-efficient. Relevance is guaranteed. Quality is pre-vetted. And it's incredibly targeted. It eliminates the randomness of the open search.
That's the advanced strategy that moves you out of that 2-hour Rami frustration loop and into effective targeted knowledge acquisition.
And this efficiency is essential because, look, finding good sources is only step one. It's the hunting phase. Now we have to acknowledge the huge cognitive hurdle that comes next.
Reading them critically.
And synthesizing the information, taking effective notes. That's step two. Without that, you just have a stack of high-quality articles that remain undigested. A stack of PDFs is not a research paper.
That's right. Once you have the sources, you have to engage with them thoughtfully, extracting the arguments, the limitations, the data points that will directly support your thesis.
Which is where the real intellectual work of scholarship truly begins.
And that brings us to our final segment, conclusion and next steps. Let's do a quick summary of the massive shifts we've outlined today.
Okay. The primary goal was to revolutionize how you approach research. We established that you have to abandon standard search engines and shift to academic environments like Google Scholar and, more importantly, university library databases.
Right. JSTOR, ScienceDirect, ProQuest, and EBSCOhost. We also clarified the 3 pillars: foundational scholarly books, critical peer-reviewed journal articles, and authoritative academic reports.
And we detailed the 5 criteria for reliability expert authorship, reputable publisher, data support, objectivity, and relevance. That's your mental filter to avoid the blog and influencer trap.
And finally, the strategic methods: effective keyword construction, the 5-7-year rule for dynamic subjects, and the incredibly efficient trick of using reference lists as a map to trusted materials.
Implementing these steps transforms the entire experience. You go from being a passive information collector to a proactive, targeted knowledge synthesizer.
Okay, so here's where we leave you with the final provocative thought. We built on this idea that finding the sources isn't the end of the process. We solved the search problem. Rami now has dozens of validated articles.
But the hard truth remains. Finding the sources is not the same as mastering the material. The information has to be ethically, clearly, and cohesively utilized.
Exactly. The process of turning that stack of 20 complex articles into organized, summarized, and plagiarism-free notes. Notes that track the methodology, the data, the limitations.
Right.
That's often harder than the initial search was.
It's a critical transformation.
So this is the cliffhanger for you, the listener, to explore. Once you have these impeccable sources, what specific note-taking and critical reading techniques ensure that your engagement results in a foundation that makes the actual writing easy and clear instead of just a disorganized heap of PDFs?
How do you move efficiently and ethically from acquisition to synthesis and ultimately to application?
That is the next challenge. The transition from being an information collector to being a knowledge synthesizer. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the absolute foundation of effective research.
We hope these strategies save you time and fundamentally elevate the quality of your work. We appreciate you taking this journey with us.
Until then, stay curious.